All right, today we're going to deconstruct the wild anatomy of a crypto market crash. We'll stare right into the brutal numbers, but more importantly, we're going to unpack the playbook, the strategy for navigating that chaos and actually finding the opportunity hidden inside all the devastation.
Let's just start with one number, one really shocking number, negative 87.9%. Now, this isn't some made-up figure. This is the real, gut-punching loss an asset can experience from its peak. This is the kind of number that sends people running for the exits. But what if? What if it's also a signal?
So to understand what that signal might be, we're going to tackle this in 4 parts. First, we'll face the damage head-on with the devastation report. Then, we're going to meet the disciplined hunter who sees a completely different picture. We'll dive into the physics of collapse to see why these things fall so hard and fast. And finally, we'll land on what this all means for you, the price of admission.
Okay, first up, the devastation report. Let's rip the Band-Aid off and look at the hard data from a hypothetical crypto crash, say a few months after a huge market peak. And as you can probably guess, it is a sea of red. And wow, what's just staggering here is the sheer scale of these drawdowns, the drop from the absolute highest price. Just look at this. Bitcoin, the big one, is down a very painful 45%. But as you move down the list to other assets, the devastation just gets worse and worse, right up to that nearly 88% collapse for BNMR. This is the view from the top, and it is absolutely terrifying for anyone who bought near it.
Now, if you zoom in a little bit, you start to see some patterns emerge. Bitcoin is showing, some signs of life. Coinbase stock seems to have found a floor, even though it's still down 60%. But here's the key. The worst of the pain is concentrated in what we call high beta assets. These are basically the riskier bets that swing way higher in a good market and, as you can see, fall way, way harder when things turn ugly. Okay, so that's one story, right? The story of absolute panic and loss. But what if all that devastation was actually part of someone's plan? Let's switch gears completely and look at how a disciplined strategy can flip this entire narrative on its head. And this quote, man, this just nails the mindset of what we're calling the disciplined hunter. Instead of chasing the market all the way up to its peak, the hunter waits. They wait patiently for the market to come crashing down into zones they've already marked out. It's all about letting the price come to you. And here's the proof in the pudding, right? This table tells a totally different story. While everyone else is drowning in red, this portfolio was actually in the green. Because they set up these predefined accumulation zones, basically a price range where they plan to start buying, they turned all that market panic into personal profit. Their performance is positive, with gains of up to 18%. And this, right here, this is the psychological masterstroke. The person who bought at the peak, they're in pure panic mode, just praying to break even. But the disciplined hunter who bought low, they're operating from a position of total strength. To them, any further dip isn't a crisis. It's just a Black Friday sale. Okay, but that begs a pretty big question, right? Why? Why do these assets collapse with such incredible speed and violence? I mean, this isn't your grandfather's stock market. The mechanics here are, well, they're different. And they are brutal. You can kind of break down the physics of a crypto collapse into 3 big stages that all feed into each other. First, you have the mechanics of the elevator down effect. That gets compounded by the brutal math of recovery, and it all leads to that final psychological breaking point, mainstream capitulation. So first up, you've got this elevator down effect. See, in a bull run, tons of traders use leverage, basically borrowed money, to make bigger bets. But when the price starts to fall, the exchanges automatically close those positions. They force sell. This forced selling pushes the price down even more, which, you guessed it, triggers another wave of forced selling. It's this vicious, automated cycle, literally like an elevator with the cable cut. And that's where we get to the brutal, brutal math that so many people miss. A drop and a recovery are not a mirror image of each other. An 88% drop feels like total devastation, but to get back to where you started, you don't need an 88% gain, you need a 733% gain just to break even. And this chart just lays it all out, plain as day. That 45% drop for Bitcoin, it needs a tough but maybe achievable 82% gain to recover. But look what happens as the drop gets deeper. The climb back becomes almost astronomical. The deeper the hole you fall into, the longer and steeper that ladder is to climb back out.
All right, so we've seen the devastation, we've seen the counter strategy, and we've looked under the hood at why it all happens. So, what's the big takeaway here? What does all this actually mean if you're looking at these markets?
I think it really boils down to this one idea. These violent, stomach-churning swings, they aren't a mistake in the system. They're a core feature. The very same force that creates all this devastation is what makes those life-changing returns possible in the first place. This volatility, it's simply the price of admission.
And what that means for you is that success in this game isn't what most people think it is. It's not about being a genius who perfectly times the top. It's about survival. It's about having the disciplined strategy and, frankly, the stomach to not only survive the downturn, but to actually act on your plan when fear in the market is at an absolute fever pitch.
And that leaves us right here with this one final, crucial question. When you see an asset like Bitcoin back at a key level, a price that once marked a moment of pure euphoria, is what you're seeing just devastation? Or is it the next great opportunity? Is the price of admission being offered at a discount right now?